Hello and welcome, Exiles. I want to talk about my plan start for Pharisha. They gave us the patch notes on what they're changing with ascendancies. Holy guacamole, I did not expect this many buffs. A lot of classes got huge buffs. There were a couple of nerfs, Ancestral Commander, Blind Prophet, but all in all, most things got just big buffs. And the one I want to start is actually going to be Aristocrat. This is one I didn't play last Pharisha League. I said, hey, this is really good, and but it's super generic. It's just a pile of stats, which quite frankly is pretty OP. And then a few days ago, I was fully in the mindset of I'm gonna start a Surfcaster, and I'm gonna have a good time just going fast. And then some guy in my chat, unprompted, said, Lance, holy something blah 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 blah, Aristocrat is really bad. And I thought, no way is this actually somebody honestly saying this. I don't know if he's trying to rage bait. It was completely just out of the blue, random. I don't know if he's trying to trigger me, but he did trigger me, okay? He successfully triggered me into being like, there's no way people don't realize how OP this class is. Because Aristocrat, pile of stats, believe it or not, very, very strong. And the thing is, the changes they made to it were very significant buffs. This node right here, which was 30% attribute, is now 40% for some reason, which is quite frankly insane. 40% of a stat is very, very insane. Its small nodes are all just passive points, which are, again, very strong because clusters are very strong. And then its final node, which was already one of its best nodes, got a 60% power bump. It now gives 8% per 5 of your lowest attribute. So for example, if you successfully do some tri-stacking with this, let's say you have 1,000 of each attribute, this node is 1,600% increased damage. Quite frankly, it's insane. It's an insane amount of power, and it works perfectly with Bloodline Ascendancies because you have 3 really good nodes, and then you can go something like Ul's for action speed, crit immunity, something like that. Quite frankly, I am planning to go... My thought process right now is I start out with just, duelist slams. By Cruel Lab, we buy like a Brutus Lead Sprinkler, which is just a nice flat damage per strength item. We start out with the strength scaling. Then when Jaquani's, a staff, gets added to the market, I'll show you that real quick. Once this staff becomes available, we're going to swap into doing a Mask of the Stitch Demon combination with this staff, which will be where I'm planning to go like a life-based blood magic caster angle with Mask of the Stitch Demon, which is this thing right here. So Mask makes all of our int give us a bunch of life scaling, and then it says, hey, if you have a bunch of ES, I'm going to give you regen. So the thought process here is we click Jaquani's, we get a bunch of flat damage based on our intelligence, and then every bit of intelligence investment we get is also going to give us percent increase ES. And my thought process is I'll put on like a hybrid evasion ES chess piece. We'll get the evasion per int mastery. We'll have basically close to evade cap. And then on top of that, we will have a bunch of life scaling. And because we have that hybrid chess piece, and this main chess piece, and Mask of the Stitch Demon here, which has a decent amount of ES on it, we're probably going to have, I would think, 5,000 to 10,000 energy shield. That technically is like not on our pool, but that'll be giving us 10 to 20% base regen, which scales with regen rate, so we'll have insane sustain. That's what I'm kind of thinking is I'll go Brutus Lead Sprinkler into Mask of the Stitch Demon Jaquani's, but then late game, I want to think about Void farming. And for those of you who don't know or aren't familiar with Void farming, the current best build for Void farming is Gladiator. Full stop. You may not believe me, but it's actually Gladiator EE. And quite frankly, I would go as far to say as Gladiator was better than Trickster before Trickster got nerfed. You may not believe me, but I think that's the case. And Gladiator, what Gladiator did is it gave you the 50 base block, the lucky block, and the if we sit here for an hour, we will deal double damage. The lucky block is really what carried it, and then you would steal Fortify from champion. It was a very good tank class, and EE could scale it pretty well. Quite frankly, I just think Aristocrat is just downright much, much stronger than that. Because what you can do is you go in scaling where you have a whole boatload of percent damage more than you would have normally, and on top of that, you get 40% intelligence, and 8 extra passives, and you steal the lucky block. All in all, I think this is much, much a stronger package because you're trading like one hybrid ES prefix for like increased block chance, which makes up for the block chance loss pretty much by itself. And then you have way more intelligence scaling with or way more ES scaling with the intelligence. It's just a better, stronger package. And I think, quite frankly, with a little bit of all attribute on all your like clusters, all attribute on your helical reflect, all that sort of stuff, you're going to end up with probably close to, on the budget end, I would think you'd be 500 strength and dex without really trying to invest into it. And then on the higher end, I think you'll get to 1,000 dex, 1,000 strength as your like tertiary extra stats on the side. I don't think that's an understatement. I think that's quite realistic, while still being mainly an ES build, just giga try hard. I think this will just absolutely destroy Valdo maps, I think. Now, keep in mind, Valdo maps are getting extra mods, so they're more dangerous from that. Bosses now enrage at low life, which is make quad ghosted feared, again, more dangerous. And on top of that, they're adding extra abilities to bosses throughout whenever you encounter them. So I'm thinking like it's going to be like gauntlet style bosses, where a lot of these bosses have extra stuff that makes them more dangerous. We'll see what that is. So I think there's going to be a new tier of difficulty for quad ghosted maps. And this is the most likely class, I think, that can crush that difficulty because of how ridiculous this power scaling is. That's my thought process. I haven't really fully committed to a Valdo farmer in quite a few leagues. I've had a couple of ideas where I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to send this. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Like, for example, we did Cold Dot Glad this league, and I was like, okay, maybe this could push to Valdo difficulty. It had the max hit. It did not have the recovery rate. Being a dot build, when there's just this thing in Quad Ghosted Feared where there's specifically a ghost that can spawn these little archer small goddess statue things that will then brick your recovery. You need instantaneous recovery to counter that, which means you need to be for example, like gain on hit discipline mod, stuff like that can counter it. A dot build can't really counter it because you don't really generate that many hits. So you need something that hits fast, hits a lot, to then counter something that can turn off your recovery. That's the sort of thing we're talking about here. And so to be realistic, I've done a bunch of different things where I've like, okay, I'm going to see if this can do it. I know this can do it. I have full confidence, and we're going to take it there. And maybe you'll get a nice clip of me voiding, or you'll get a lot of content of us doing some void maps. We're going to see how it goes, and we're going to try to push this character to its limit in 3 weeks. It's not a lot of time, but I am fully excited to log into this class and see how far it can go, because I do really think this is just downright better than Glad, by multiple levels better than Glad. Thing is, it's got some contingent factors. We do have to steal more than skill, and we only have 3 weeks to gear our character, which is a pretty tight time frame to make a Valdo Quad Ghost viable character. That's what we're thinking. I think it'll actually have a really good league start, starting with something like Brutus Led Sprinkler into Jaquani's. Jaquani's, I think, will go straight to being uber viable pretty fast with Mask of the Demon. It just has so much base damage scaling, it's kind of ridiculous. So yeah, that's my thought process. We'll see how it goes. Just some thoughts. I'm going to probably end up doing some League Star preparations where I actually flesh out this idea, get some League Star POBs, some level progression, stuff like that. Probably put together a buy list for the build. But yeah, that's the ascendancy that sticks out to me the most as insane. Check out this post here. Somebody made a whole collage of these where you can go through and look at all the changes. There's a lot of good options, a lot of fun things to build, but that is what I am going to be gearing for on this Freesia League Start. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Best of luck out there with your League Start plans on your builds. Take care, Exiles. Have a good one.